As we were having our morning coffee and talking about the plans for the day, we started to think about all of the old times when we first started homesteading and we had small kids, and a lot of these projects that we started years ago, and just remembering the good times that we spent together as a family.
But now our kids are grown and we don't want to just keep those memories from the past as the only memories. We want to kind of switch our focus now that we're empty nesters to the generations to come and the potential future memories that we can be building with ourselves and our grown children and their families.
While we're enjoying this kind of in between times in our lives when Sarah and I are building more memories with just the two of us, we do realize that a lot of these long term projects that we're doing will also continue to live on much longer than us and will continue to provide food and great memories for the future generations of our grandkids and maybe even great grandkids.
So during this time, Kevin and I kind of have had a mindset shift where we've gone from raising and growing food for our immediate family to planning how we can influence the memories of our grown children and our grandchildren and teach our grandchildren where their food comes from and how to pick berries and make grape juice and jelly and just create some amazing memories with the future generations.
We live in a world where people are becoming more and more disconnected from their food. And we really want to continue on the tradition in our family of being connected to our food and knowing where it comes from and playing an active role in being healthy. And that's why we do all of the hard work that we do now, so that in the future, those lessons can be learned by the next generation.
And while our kids or our grandkids may not want to take over the homestead or come and live here when we're gone, we at least want to plant some seeds and show them where food comes from.
Well, morning chores are done, and it is time to move on for the project of the day. The project that we're doing today involves our grapes, our berries, and this big pile of landscape timbers.
Now the grapes and all of the berry plants, they are all very young. And it's at this time in their kind of lifespan that we need to set them up for success and so that they are, growing in a healthy way so that long term they will be able to provide a lot of wonderful fruit for our family, hopefully for multiple generations.
So today we're going to be basically training the grapes and the berries to grow in the way that we want them to grow. That will be a little bit different for the grapes versus the berries, and we're going to walk you through kind of how that's going to take place. And then once we're all done with that, we're actually going to use these landscape timbers to make a border all the way around these two rows. These rows are 100 feet long and 6 feet wide, so it's going to be quite a job. We're going to put these landscape timbers down and use some big nails to hold them into the ground, just like we did around our garden last fall, and it has really helped be able to have an edge to mow up against and weed eat up against and keep things out of the landscape fabric.
It is going to be a hot, steamy day, so we just want to get going while it's not super hot and just knock this project out. Well, this row here is our row of grapes, and we planted these grapes 2 springs ago, so they've been in the ground and growing for about a year and a half. We have 3 different varieties planted here. This is the seedless Concord grapes. We also have Reliance, which is seedless, and Neptune, which is seedless. The Reliance are kind of a blush color, and the Neptune are a white grape. The Concord grapes are, that deep purple color. Now we are growing these on cattle panels, and I know that this is not typical to grow grapes on a cattle panel. Normally people will put posts in the ground and run tight wire, and I we just didn't want to do that. This was super easy. We already had the materials, and I think in the long run, it is going to work out great. Now, what we're doing today is we're continuing to train these grapes. My vision is to have each one of them have a single stem up to the top of the cattle panel, and then one branch each going opposite directions. That'll set it up for really healthy life, where the branches will grow their lateral branches, and that's where the grapes will grow. So today we're going to be trimming back the main stem here, and then helping the two branches to grow opposite directions, and we will attach them to the top with the tomato clips that we've been using in the greenhouse. Really, everything else can be pruned off, but there is something exciting happening. Now, we really shouldn't have allowed any of the grapes to grow this year. We should have just like picked off all the blossoms and waited for next year, but it was so exciting that we had some grapes starting to grow. Now, I didn't know if they would ripen because we're getting so late into the season, but as we walked out here and looked at some of these grape bunches, you guys, the grapes are starting to ripen. I mean, they're supposed to get a really deep purple because these are seedless Concord grapes, but we're getting somewhere. This is so exciting. We're really hoping that we can raise these to share with our family and grandkids, which we don't have any on the way yet. We're just thinking far into the future to be able to make juice and jelly and those kinds of things. So today we are going to be just going through all of these grapevines, helping to train them in the way that I'm wanting them to grow. And hopefully that means that in the spring, they'll just be ready to burst into life and start growing and producing lots of grapes. So this early on in the grapes kind of life, my main priority is to train it to a single stem all the way up to the top. And once there is one healthy stem all the way up to the top, then I start training one branch each going each way. So you can see that over the course of the summer, we've gotten some branches coming off of this main trunk here, and so I need to get rid of those. So that's one thing that I'm going to be doing today, is cutting off these extra branches off the main stem that we don't need. And I'm going to have to go through and, you know, it's already climbed onto the fence, so I need to pull those off. So I'm going to cut that one off, and any of these others. And I've already identified that this branch here, this vine here, is going to be the branch that runs this way on this plant. And then this next one here, I'm going to attach to the top with those tomato clips. But everything else underneath there needs to come off. So this plant gets trained to the way that I want it to grow.
You know, pruning is one of those things that, whether it's the grapes like this or the fruit trees or whatever, it's a little intimidating because you feel like you're doing a disservice to the plants. But the truth is, this really is the best thing for the plants. And even though you're cutting off a lot of foliage, you're going to get a better crop and a bigger crop by trimming than you would be by just leaving all of this unnecessary growth here. But it does sometimes feel like you're taking a step backwards.
Now this branch here has done a great job growing this direction, but then it started drooping on this cattle panel, and I don't want it to droop. I want it to grow straight on the top of this cattle panel, so I'm just going to redirect it. I'm going to detach it, and then I'm going to reattach it so that it knows to grow along the top of this panel and not down through all of these little squares. Okay, so this is trimmed up exactly the way I would like it to for training purposes. Now what is left is a permanent main stem, which will remain all of the time, and then one permanent branch going in each direction. There are a couple of these plants, like I said earlier, that have grapes growing on them, like this one back here. So I might do some pruning today, but because I am a sucker for those grapes and I want to try them for the first time, I might not be pruning them exactly the way I did this. And then I'll just come back and prune them the way I want them to be done later after the grapes have ripened. Well, we have finished trimming and pruning all of the grapevines. They each now have one single stem and then one branch going each direction. But I think they look fantastic. They are on the road to being a very wonderful, productive, long-term mini vineyard for us. Now that we have the grapes all taken care of, we're going to move on to our berry row. Right here we have a half of a row of blackberries and half of a row of raspberries. The blackberries that we are growing are a thornless erect variety. There's actually 3 different varieties that we're going to be growing. And while the erect varieties of blackberries don't vine and kind of go crazy, they do get bushy and their branches can get long and need some support. So that is why we have put this cattle panel trellis up next to it. We have a lot of branches right now that are very tall, and I want them to stop growing tall and to start growing side shoots. The side shoots are where most of the berries will be growing next summer. So what we're going to be doing all along this part of the fencing is taking these long blackberry branches and attaching them with just a tomato clip like we use in the greenhouse to the cattle panel. And then we're going to be cutting these just above the top of the cattle panel so they don't just keep getting tall and totally out of control. Next year, these canes will produce fruit. That's one thing about blackberries. The first year that they put on their branches like this, they're just growing leaves. The second year on these same branches, they will grow their berries. And then at the end of the second year, you'll get rid of these branches because they'll never fruit again. And then you'll keep the first year branches that grew when these were fruiting. So it's just kind of an every year you need to cut out the old branches and leave the new branches. Because we just planted these blackberries this spring, we really don't have any second year branches. So all of these are just first year branches that hopefully will fruit next year. On this side of the berry aisle, we have first year raspberry plants growing. We did not expect for them to fruit. We've got lots of fruit on here, and a lot of the branches have grown long and have gotten heavy and are just kind of laying on the ground. So I'm going to be doing some harvesting today of the raspberries that we do have that are ready, but I'm also going to be supporting these branches by attaching them also to the trellis. Now these raspberries are ever-bearing varieties, which means that they can produce 2 separate crops. They'll produce a crop in like early summer, late spring, but also in the fall, like right now. So I'm really excited to see how these raspberry plants are going to do next year.
While Sarah's working on the berries, I'm going to get started working on this border project that we're doing today. Here in Missouri, we have a lot of Bermuda grass, and Bermuda grass will creep over the top of the weed fabric. And believe it or not, in spots like say right here, where a little bit of dried dead grass has kind of gathered underneath the cattle panel, that Bermuda grass will grow from over here. It'll kind of creep over here, and then it'll root in this little patch of what has now become basically soil on top of the weed fabric, and it can get out of control very fast. By putting these landscape timbers along the very edge of the weed fabric here, it gives us something not only to mow right up against, but also to weed eat up against and to keep that Bermuda grass from creeping in. So that's the main reason that we're doing it. It also just gives it a nice clean look, nice border around here. But the main reason we're doing it is because that Bermuda grass, we just need to be able to keep that out of here. So we went and we bought, I think it's 56 of these landscape timbers at Menards. And the way that we're going to do this is earlier, while we were taking a little bit of a break, I drilled 3 holes in each one of these. I have them all ready to go, and I don't need to do them one at a time. And basically, I'm just going to be using these long 12-inch nails. Also picked these up at Menards. And we're just going to pound these one into each hole, and that will keep them in place along the sides of the berry patches here. So while Sarah's working on tying up those blackberries and raspberries, I'm going to start working on this project.
Look at how long this one is. I can't even believe it. Probably 8 feet tall.
Well, the border around the grapes is done. Whew, it is hot out. You guys, last week it almost felt like fall was coming. Today, we're right back into summer. It was almost 90 degrees out today. But this is an amazing job done. I love how neat and tidy it makes this look. And it's just going to be so much easier to keep this area weed-eated and just keeping it looking really nice. I think Sarah just finished up with the blackberries as well. Let's go see how those turned out.
Well, the blackberries are all tied up now. I did a tiny bit of thinning out to, not a lot, but just a little bit in areas that seemed like there were just overall excessive amounts of branches. But this makes this area also look much more organized and neat and tidy. And I think overall the blackberries will look just way less completely bonkers and out of control next year. I do want to show you that while I was tying back the blackberry branches, I found one little cluster of blackberries that are about to ripen. That is so weird. These blackberry plants are so young. We shouldn't have fruit this year, but it is surprising us, so we get a taste of what some of them will taste like next year. Kevin and I have decided that because it is just so terribly hot, we're actually going to finish this project tomorrow morning in the cool part of the day. We're going to finish the raspberries. We'll do the raspberry harvest and tie up those plants, and then we will do the border all the way around here. Everything is just going to look so beautiful when it's all done, but it is just miserable out here. So we will see you in just a couple of seconds, but tomorrow morning.
Well, morning chores are done, and it's time to finish up the project that we started yesterday.
What we have left to do today is the border around this section of the berries, and then to harvest and tie up these raspberries. Now, I didn't mention yesterday that all of these fantastic plants are from Stark Brothers. We continue to have the most wonderful experience with Stark Brothers. All of our orchard trees are from there, our grapes, these berries. They're just a wonderful company, and we always get really great plants from them.
And we love that they're a Missouri-based company,
Absolutely.
although they do ship all over the country.
Right, and you know, they have been in business for like over 120 years or something like that, and they're the only company that has a 1-year guarantee on their plants. So if you put in a tree or bare root bush or whatever and it dies within a year, they replace it, no questions asked, and that is amazing.
Yeah, we even used them for the trees that we planted when we still lived in Arizona.
Yeah, so let's get started with the most exciting part for me of this project is actually harvesting some of the raspberries from the plants that we just planted this spring. One of the main reasons why we are going to tie up these raspberries is you can see that they've kind of fallen over, and the berries that are here are just kind of laying on the ground, and I don't want that. Not only are they going to get bugs easier, if we have bunnies in here, they're going to get eaten. It's just going to be better overall for the plants to be supported on this cattle panel that we have here. But first we are going to harvest those that are ripe, and we can take them inside and have them with our yogurt. We got just over half of a quart of gorgeous raspberries. We've been harvesting raspberries just like 1 or 2 here and there, but to have a sizable amount, this is so amazing. And we're so grateful that in the very first season we got some raspberries. We think we have everything harvested that needs to come into the house. Now we're just going to tie up all of these nice long raspberry branches so we can finish the project with the border around the berry row.
All of the raspberries are tied up now and up off the ground, which is going to make the fruit a lot easier to harvest, and it will keep it a lot better because hopefully there will be a lot less bugs on it. So the final part of this project is going to be finishing off the landscape timbers on this half. Sarah's going to start sweeping the fabric. I'm going to start bringing over logs, and we're going to get this done in no time. Well, I sure am glad that that is done, because you guys, it's only about 10:30 in the morning right now, and it is already over 90 degrees, and they're saying over 100 for today. So it is time to no longer be pounding in nails.
This was a really great job done. The blackberries and the raspberries and the grapes all look so much better supported by their trellises. And it's going to be so easy to keep these areas neat and tidy now that we have this border down, and it just looks so beautiful. In the spring, we do have a couple raspberry plants that are going to need to be replaced, but thanks to Stark Brothers Guarantee, they will be replacing them for free.
Now, we do have future plans for this area as well that includes adding another row for blueberries. I'm not saying that we're going to do that next spring, but if we can fit it into the schedule, it is definitely on the plan for next year or the year after.
You guys, we hope that you enjoyed spending some time with us today as we worked on these projects that are really an investment into the future of not only our family, but generations to come.
Hey, if you're enjoying videos like this, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. If you've been a long-term subscriber, don't forget to just double check and make sure you're still subscribed and the notification bell is hit so that you get notified of all of our new videos. And remember, as always, the absolute best way you can help us is just by sharing our videos. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.